The following presentation is brought to you by Discovery Education, leading the world of digital and video learning. Discovery Education, connect to a world of learning.
The southwestern region of the United States is a land of diverse geographical features, ranging from deep, rugged canyons to flat, grass-covered plains to arid deserts and to pine-covered mountains. The largest Native American reservations in the United States are located in this region. Historically, the entire area was once part of the colony of New Spain, and the Spanish influence in geographical names, architecture, cultural activities, and foods is still very evident today. The 4 states in the southwestern region are Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Each state, with the exception of Oklahoma, borders the nation of Mexico to the south. Three of the southwestern states are landlocked, but the region does have a long coastline along the Gulf of Mexico. All of the marine shoreline of the southwestern region lies within the boundaries of Texas, America's second-largest state in geographic area after Alaska. A long chain of narrow barrier islands is located just offshore in the Gulf. The port city of Galveston, Texas, is situated on one of these barrier islands. In September of 1900, a storm called the Great Galveston Hurricane hit the area. This was the most severe natural disaster ever to occur in the United States. More than 6,000 people lost their lives, and virtually all the buildings in Galveston were destroyed. 3 years later, construction began on this 17-foot-high seawall to help prevent another such catastrophe. Today, the people who live along the island beaches that face the Gulf of Mexico build their houses on stilts. They do this in an attempt to escape the high water and raging surf of the hurricanes that frequently strike this area during its prolonged periods of hot, humid weather. In contrast to the rough waters of the Gulf, the intracoastal waterway on the inland side of the barrier islands is fairly peaceful. Here, numerous rivers empty into the Gulf, including the Rio Grande, which forms the international boundary between Texas and the nation of Mexico. Wetlands near the Gulf include numerous estuaries. These are aquatic environments where fresh and salt water mix. Broad expanses of salt marshes border many of the estuaries in Texas, and swampy bayous, like those found in neighboring Louisiana, are also common in Texas. The sheltered bays of the Texas coast provide many excellent places for fishing boats to dock. Commercial fishing is a vital industry here, and fishing for shrimp, or shrimping as it's called, is economically the most important sector of the state's fishing industry. In fact, Texas is one of the nation's 3 top shrimp-producing states, along with Alaska and Louisiana. Galveston Bay is the largest estuary in Texas, and it is a major deep-water harbor as well. The Houston Ship Channel, which intersects the bay, is one of the busiest waterways in the world. It's traveled by commercial ships up to 1,000 feet in length. Some ships bring foreign imports into the United States, while others carry U.S. exports to distant parts of the world. For example, at the docks in Galveston, grain elevators like these hold thousands of tons of Texas rice. And on this particular day, that rice is being loaded onto a ship bound for Hong Kong in the People's Republic of China, where this valuable Texas export will feed lots of Chinese people. In addition to freighter ships that carry rice and other goods, huge tanker ships that transport petroleum are a common sight along the Gulf Coast. Much of the oil they carry is extracted from beneath the seafloor by people working on offshore oil platforms. Besides its hundreds of offshore wells, Texas is home to more than 350,000 land-based oil wells. About 1/4 of the oil pumped nationwide comes from Texas. And Houston, Texas, the largest city in the southwestern region, is considered to be the energy capital of the United States. The oil business in Texas began with the discovery of the rich Spindletop oil field near the city of Beaumont. In 1901, drillers struck a pocket of petroleum that was under so much pressure that a powerful gusher erupted, spewing oil hundreds of feet into the air. Eventually, the gusher was controlled and more wells were drilled. Until storage tanks could be constructed, millions of gallons of crude oil were stored in big outdoor ponds like these. The gusher at Spindletop caused an oil rush across the Southwest as thousands of drillers searched for more petroleum. Boom towns filled with towering oil derricks appeared wherever a promising oil field was discovered. Abundant, inexpensive petroleum helped revolutionize American industry and transportation, since its discovery ushered in the automobile age in the United States. As it comes from the ground, crude oil is a complex, energy-rich liquid derived from prehistoric life forms. But crude oil must be refined before it can be used. And there are more giant oil refineries like this one along the Gulf Coast of Texas than in any other place in the United States. At these factories, heat is used to refine crude oil, that is, to extract its numerous useful components, such as gasoline, diesel fuel, motor oil, and petrochemicals. Petrochemicals are major ingredients in the manufacture of plastics, solvents, artificial rubber, and other products. And the state of Texas is among the leading producers of petrochemicals in the nation. Natural gas is another resource generally found in the same locations as crude oil. The production of natural gas, which fuels our stoves and heats our homes, is another important component of the Southwest region's economy. In fact, Texas leads the nation in natural gas production. Natural gas and oil are fossil fuels that took millions of years for nature to create. Once these non-renewable resources have been depleted, they cannot be replaced. As oil and gas wells run dry in the U.S., the supply of these domestically produced fossil fuels continues to decrease. This makes the United States increasingly dependent on fossil fuels imported from other parts of the world. The Gulf coastal plains are the low, flat lands that border the Gulf of Mexico. In Texas, they make up the entire eastern part of the state. Due to the fertile nature of this land and the ease with which it can be accessed from the Gulf, nearly all early human settlement and exploration of Texas took place here. Before the Spanish arrived in the New World in the late 15th century, about 30,000 Native Americans inhabited the coastal plains of Texas. One prominent cultural group, called the Caddo Indians, formed agricultural societies and built small earthen pyramids for their religious ceremonies. In 1519, Spanish explorers began to map the Texas Gulf Coast. They were the first Europeans to do so. This was the same year that Spain began its conquest of the great Aztec Empire, about 500 miles south of Texas in central Mexico. Much later, in the 1680s, the Spanish began colonizing Texas when they built their first missions to the west of what is now the city of El Paso. Also during the 1680s, the The French explorer René Robert Cavelier, Sieur de La Salle, sailed through the Gulf of Mexico, planning to establish a colony at the mouth of the Mississippi River. But the expedition couldn't find the river. Then one of their ships sank, and another ran aground here at Matagorda Bay in Texas. La Salle tried to make the best of a bad situation by establishing Fort St. Louis near today's city of Victoria, Texas. The colony began with about 300 people, but it soon failed due to disease, famine, and conflicts with the native tribes. In the early 1720s, to discourage France from colonizing Texas, Spain established missions in and around what is today the city of San Antonio. The Spanish built missions wherever they founded colonies. These unique colonial institutions served as religious, trading, and military outposts of the Spanish government. The missionaries encouraged local Native Americans to relinquish their traditional way of life by coming to live at the missions. There they were taught the Spanish language, the Catholic faith, and trades such as weaving and woodworking. At this Texas mission, it is still possible to see the simple rooms where Native American families once lived. And the mission's historic grist mill was the first place in Texas where grain was ground into flour using water-powered machinery. When Spain granted Mexico its independence in 1821, Texas automatically became a Mexican province. The government of Mexico at that time was greatly concerned about the rapid territorial expansion of the United States. Even so, for a while it granted large parcels of land to Americans who wanted to settle in Texas. This sugarcane plantation was established by an American citizen on a Mexican land grant in 1824. By the 1830s, Americans began to outnumber Mexicans in Texas. As a result, the Mexican government tried to halt American immigration into Texas, which angered the Americans. Many American settlers in Texas wanted to use slave labor on their cotton and sugarcane plantations, despite the fact that slavery was illegal in Mexico. The Americans decided they needed to make their own laws, and they composed a Texas Declaration of Independence. In 1835, at the Alamo, an old San Antonio mission, the Americans lost a very bloody battle while trying to free Texas from Mexico. However, the following year, American troops defeated Mexican forces, and a new nation called the Republic of Texas was born. Their country's flag was red, white, and blue, with one lone star on it. This small wooden building served as the Republic's first capital. This was where Sam Houston took the oath of office as president of the new nation. In 1845, 9 years after the Republic of Texas was founded, it gave up its independence and joined the United States as a new slave state and the 28th state to be admitted to the Union.